Welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast, your ultimate source of inspiration and empowerment. We're here to help women succeed in every area of their lives: career, money, relationships, and health and well-being, while celebrating the remarkable journeys of individuals from all walks of life who've achieved amazing things. Whether you're looking to supercharge your career, build financial independence, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, the Starter Girlz podcast is here to guide you. Join us as we explore the journeys of those who dare to dream big and achieve greatness. I'm your host, Jennifer Loading, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz podcast. Wherever you are tuning in today, we are so excited to have you here, and we have another fabulous guest coming on today. But before we bring her on, I want to kind of paint a picture of what we're going to be talking about today. So imagine a world where every night, instead of tossing and turning, you're able to drift into a deep, restful sleep that leaves you feeling energized and empowered the next day. For many women, sleepless nights have become the norm, robbing them of joy, clarity, and peace. But what if that could change? What if there was a way to reclaim your nights, transforming them into a time of restoration and healing? Today's guest knows firsthand the struggle of battling sleepless nights, and she's on a mission to help women everywhere rediscover the power of truly restful sleep. And I'm so excited to chat with her because I feel like this is an area like the last couple of days that I've been struggling with, and I've been so furious. So I'm so excited to chat with her. But before we bring her on, I do want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. And with that, we're ready to bring our guest on today. So joining us today is Morgan Adams, a transformative, holistic sleep coach who empowers women to conquer their battle with sleepless nights without the use of sleep medication. Having battled insomnia and a reliance on prescription sleeping pills for nearly a decade, Morgan understands the profound impact of sleep on one's quality of life. As a two-time breast cancer survivor, her resilience and passion for disease prevention extend far beyond sleep as she champions a holistic approach to well-being. So welcome to the show, Morgan. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm very excited to chat with you today.
This is going to be so much fun. So your story, I know we got to chat a little bit before we did this show before, so we could, so I could get a background. And so I just think you're a remarkable woman. You've definitely have been through your share of trials and triumphs coming out of that. And I think what you're doing now is so remarkable. And I think sleep is a big thing. When we're in that zone where we're having it, it's great. When we're not, it's like not having health. It affects your quality of life. So I want to start with, let's open this up with you telling us a little bit about how you're helping your clients. And then I want to talk a little bit about your journey that brought you here.
Yeah. So I have been working in this space for coming up on 3 years, a little over 3 years, I guess. And what I do is I help women who have insomnia or who really want to optimize their sleep. And I do this in a way that is a holistic approach. You mentioned that before. And really what this means for people who are kind of unsure, what does that mean exactly? It's really taking all parts of the person and looking at the parts instead of just using a medical model or a psychological model of working with improving sleep. So I use a variety of different modalities. I'm looking at nutrition, movement, chronotype, which is basically the fancy way of saying, are you a night owl or a morning lark? I'm looking at cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which is the gold standard for treating insomnia over sleeping pills, as well as circadian health practices. So I'm kind of just mixing all of these modalities together in a way that is customized to each client, because I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach to fixing sleep, because there's not a one size fits all. I mean, if you were on a diet, Jennifer, I wouldn't just be like, okay, you're going to do keto and Sally's going to do keto and everyone's going to have their own unique way that they need their interventions delivered to them, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on this. And it's so interesting because, yeah, I love that you're talking about all these different pieces. And I think that in the work that I do, it's the same thing. I don't look at a client and go, although I'm doing more from the coaching aspect of how do we help them deliver lasting results, sustainability, right? There is no one size fits all. When somebody comes to you, you sort of have to meet them where they are, and then you have to design how you work with them, but also what you work with them, the modalities based on at the present where they're showing up at. And it's, I always say it's kind of like when somebody comes to me, it's like if they're already doing, these things in they're doing gratitude journals and affirmations and they're exercising and they're eating right. They're doing a lot of the things already to be healthy. We have to figure out what the missing piece are. If we have somebody not doing any of those things, and we got to start at the bottom, giving them all of that's going to just be way too many things to try to implement in. And so I like that you're looking at this whole scape, which I think is so instrumental in creating sustainable long-term change, not quick fix, throw a Band-Aid on it.
Yes, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a long-term sustainable change, because there are a lot of quick fixes out there. I mean, we can talk, if you want, about my sleeping pill dependence years ago, sleeping pills being fixes. There are tons of, supplements and gadgets, and not to say that they're all a bad thing. They have their place. But I think that the way our society has sort of wired us is like, let's get a quick fix on this issue. And because I'm a sleep coach, I get served ad after ad after ad of like sleep products that just make these gargantuan claims of like, you're going to sleep 8 hours in a row. You're not going to wake up. You're going to be refreshed every morning. And it's just, they're just really kind of quick fixes, when a lot of the things that we have are more sustainable in nature and really are rooted in behavioral change long term, not just like a one and done kind of thing.
And I think it's interesting because you're right. I think we are set up in society that we look for solutions, easy solutions, because we don't want to, I put something up the other day and I was talking about this, how I had talked to this person at a networking event recently, and it's not just one person. I've had this before, but where a conversation came up with the type of work that I do, and that I said, well, it's really about getting to the root cause of why people do the behaviors that they do. These are subconscious blocks. And when we start engineering backwards and we start looking at why people are doing things, and then we start pedaling back, we'll start seeing patterns of behavior that are rooted in belief systems or things that have happened to us that have created this, right? And, a lot of times I get this, that seems like a lot of work. Well, listen, if you want to make real change, that's what you're going to have to do. Otherwise, you're going to be just masking a symptom, and you're just going to trade things off. So if it's not your sleep or something, it'll be something else that is going to be affected. And I truly believe that these things that we do, these belief systems and these things that we hold on to, as they really manifest in various ways. And they do show up in our sleep patterns. They show up in our habits. They show up in our work. They show up in our relationships. So I think this is really just an existential thing, right? This sleep is really, yes, it can be hormonal and it can be other things that you've got to figure out. But some of this also is really rooted in our behaviors and the things that we're doing day in and day out. And when we backpedal and really look at it, we can start finding things that we can do differently to create that long-term change.
Yes. So well said.
Yeah, I deal with this a lot. But it's funny that we're doing this because sleep, oh my gosh, like when I was growing up, when we were young, like we could go on minimal amounts of sleep, right? And we could function and be fine. Now, Morgan, I am like, when I don't get my sleep, I'm mad. I am seriously pissed off about it because I know that it's going to affect my quality of life all day. And I don't want to do anything the day before I don't want to drink. I don't want to do anything that is going to compromise that for me, because I just don't like the way I feel the next day.
Right. I know. I think back to like we're roughly in the same age bracket. And I think back to the times when I would go out to clubs until 2:00 in the morning. I'd wake up at 6 or 7 and be like, I'd go to work. And I'm like, I could not do that right now. I would be.
You go to work hungover for that matter, right? You get up the next day, you get out and you go to work the next day. How did we even do that? Like, right?
It really changes as you get older. You are so spot on about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great what you're doing. I think it's so important. And I love that you're also talking about the chronotypes too. I read a book, I may have shared this with you. I read a book, you probably have too, The Power of When by the Sleep Doctor. And it's got a lot of science in it. So I have to kind of filter through it. But I like that it talks about sort of like these chronotypes, these four different, based on your circadian rhythm, which I think is really neat because it really sort of, a friend brought it to my attention and then I read it. But for me, it really kind of outlined like things that I'm doing, why I'm doing them, sort of when I'm doing them. Like I like to get up in the morning and breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. I like that. It's not because I've been told breakfast that you should eat breakfast, right? Because I'm a low carber. We can eat when we eat. But I like my breakfast first thing in the morning when I get up. It's my favorite meal, and I could lunch and dinner. I mean, I need to eat because I got to eat, but I could totally bypass that. But that book was really helpful in just giving a lot of, I guess, truth to when we should be actively doing things, like when we should be discussing contracts or closing a sale or exercising or taking medication, and I joke about this because I'm a lion. Most people can probably tell I'm a lion. I get up first thing in the morning, ready to go. My husband's a bear. And I told him one day jokingly, I said, according to this book and our circadian rhythm, really the only time that we can have a conversation that's going to be impactful is at 3 o'clock on Sunday.
That's great.
Because I'm ready to go at 5 a.m. He's not. He's still going at 8 p.m. I've shut down. I'm done, And so it was really good just to kind of, to make fun of it a little bit, but to be an eye opener in some of the habits and things that we're doing and give logic to them, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I didn't actually read that book, but I'm familiar with Dr. Bruce's different chronotypes. And I think it's really important that each person really understands what their chronotype is because in our society today, it seems like the patterns of business, they tend to work in a way that is more supportive of early morning larks.
Right.
You think about
just the worm, right?
Yeah, like you think about morning meetings, they start at 8, maybe 9. And if you're a night owl, that is really not the time that you want to be like focusing in on a meeting. So it's one of those topics that I like to talk to people about who are in companies, because if you're in a company and you're overseeing people, you want to hopefully become cognizant of people's different chronotypes so that you can kind of meet people in the middle and not schedule super early morning things or late things and kind of, not everyone's going to be happy, but I think there's a compromise that needs to be met at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think that gets back to knowing your people, right? It really gets
Yeah.
to, if you want your people to thrive, you need to know your people. And depending on the size of the company, I guess that, smaller, it may not be as big of issue as it is, say, a large company where you've got a lot of diverse people. But I've had clients that were like that. They were, what Dr. Bruce would call a wolf, right? They're night owls and they thrive. Their ideas, all of their work is really, they get most of their ideas and they're the most proactive in the evening. And so if you're, like me, I get up in the morning and I'm early and ready to go and my brain's going. By evening, I've shut down. And I even had a friend, it was so funny, we worked together for a while and she was the night owl and I was the morning. And we sort of just knew that when she would wake up, she probably would wake up to text from me because I had been up already. My brain was just rolling. And I knew that when I woke up, I was probably going to wake up from messages from her because she was going to be doing it at 2 o'clock in the morning while I was sleeping. It worked out great. We had a kind of a system and it was fine. But I agree, it needs to be a had conversation in companies where they're, especially whether you're dealing with people.
Absolutely. And interesting little fact about the chronotypes. There is sort of this theory that we are different chronotypes for a very good reason. So if you think about our ancestors and protecting the tribe, it was to our advantage to have someone up all the time. So if everyone was a night owl, the campsite or whatever would be unprotected for a long period of time. So when you have these diverse chronotypes, supposedly it's an ancestral type of protective mechanism. So I think that's really cool, and that's why we don't want to all like strive to be a certain chronotype, even though we can't really. We can shift it a little bit, but we're really kind of born with it. We can't, we can manipulate it a little bit. If you're a really strong, like I'm a really strong early morning chronotype. Sounds like you're kind of in the same realm as I. You can't push us into the strong night owl chronotype. We might be able to kind of maybe meet in the middle at some point, but we're never going to stretch from one end to the other.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So let's talk a little, back it up a little bit to your journey, what brought you here? Because I would love to know, because I always feel like, I don't know if you were in a past career, and I don't know that we talked about that, but I think it's interesting how people evolve into these roles and they find their passion. So, and I think for somebody listening to this, because we've got I'm assuming all different, people tuning in that want, achievers, or maybe some of them are entrepreneurs, whatever. Some of them may be corporate people thinking about getting out into the entrepreneur space. I'd love to know a little bit about your journey coming into this.
Yeah, well, my background has been varied. I mean, I started off as a social worker. I went into pharmaceutical sales. Then I went into healthcare marketing. So I've done a lot of different types of careers. But what really got me kind of interested in sleep was the fact that I had insomnia for a long time. And I was dependent on sleeping pills for about 8 years. And then, the insomnia got better. I went off the sleeping pills. That's a whole other story. But in 2018, I got breast cancer, and that really, really shook up my worldview of things. And it made me really think about, what do I want to do with my life's work? What is my purpose in life? And I felt very strongly in my core that I wanted to do something professionally that helps women with their health. But I wasn't quite sure how that would play out. I briefly toyed with the idea of being a health coach for women going through breast cancer. But then I thought, well, that's a little heavy. That could be kind of depressing day in and day out. And then once the pandemic hit, early 2020 is when my sleep started to kind of shift again. And I started to fall back into some sleep issues, and I got very concerned. I started to research sleep, and I was able to get my sleep in, pretty decent shape by the end of my, trying to get it there. And while I was fixing my sleep, I started just organically posting on Facebook the things that I was doing to fix my sleep. And I found out a lot of other people in my circle were struggling with their sleep in the beginning of the pandemic. And I just got so fascinated with sleep that one day I just said to myself, I found it. I'm going to be a sleep coach, because I love the science of sleep. I love being able to make people sleep better. Of course, those people sleep was just me at the time, but still I felt like if I can make my sleep better, I can for sure help other people sleep better. And that was really sort of the impetus of my business. And at that point, there really weren't that many sleep coaches. I mean, sleep is sort of having its moment. I feel like I kind of got in on this when it was sort of like a new category. Yet, it's interesting. A lot of people still don't really know people like me are out there. I was giving a presentation the other day to a group of executive women, and one of the women reached out to have a consultation. And at the end of it, she said, I'm really glad that I listened to this presentation, because I didn't realize there were people other than sleep doctors who could help people with their sleep.
Right.
And I was just like, boom, because, I'm in it day in and day out, but I have to sometimes step back and realize, hey, there are people who do not even know there's sleep coaches out there.
Right.
So so that has really been my journey, Jennifer, into this world. And I'm just very passionate about helping women with their sleep, because if you help people get better sleep, there are all of these after effects of the better sleep. I mean, multiple, weight loss, improved relationships, improved business outcomes. I mean, you name it. When you fix your sleep, other things are going to follow in suit,
Yeah, and to your point, I just finished up. Funny, we were talking. You mentioned keto early on. I just finished up a keto certification over the weekend, and one of the things I'm finishing up a supplement course right now, which is they're going through different supplements for different things. Like if you have osteoporosis, you want to make sure you're taking vitamin K, not the calcium, because calcium ain't gonna be uptake if you're not doing vitamin K. But one of the things we were talking about is thyroid, and I've struggled a little bit with my thyroid. dipping down, and we were talking about some of the things. And one of the things is obviously sleep, making sure you get enough sleep so that the thyroid can repair itself. So it's not even just like what you're talking about, like weight loss or even on the mental aspects of having better relationships, you're going to have better decision acuity, all of those things, right? But it's also the body needs to have time. I mean, you talk about not having enough sleep. You're talking about getting up the next day and you're going to probably be hungrier because you didn't have enough sleep because you got the ghrelin and all of those, what do we call them? Our cortisol and all that going crazy. Insulin's going crazy because you're not sleeping. So I'm talking from this, some of the science stuff over here on the body, that it's so important. That's why when I mentioned to you early on, when I don't get my sleep, I'm mad because I know all these things are going to trickle down. All this stuff's going to trickle down. My thyroid's not getting to rest. My insulin's going to be, even though I'm doing keto, you still have insulin spikes when you're doing low carb. You're going to have all this stuff. And then I'm probably going to be hungrier, which is going to make me mad. And I'm going to be grouchy all day, so I don't want to deal with it. So I love what you're doing. And I'm glad that you were able to get in at a time. I feel like this is kind of like the nervous system thing right now is kind of the big buzzword that's coming out. And I got certified in that recently too. And I'm not so much at going out and marketing that as my sole, hey, I'm a nervous system fitness coach. I'm using it as a modality in the work that I do with my clients because I can give them better results if they know the importance of the nervous system and how it's, I think, is also affected by our sleep.
Yes.
The vicious back and forth.
Yeah. If you literally pick something that is important in your life or a health topic that's important to you, and you go into Google and you say, how can XYZ be affected by sleep? You'll find that literally everything that's important to you is impacted by sleep.
I agree.
It's pretty wild when you think about it.
You need your sleep, humans. You need it to function, right?
Absolutely.
You're not going to be preaching on the sleep.
That's right.
I think, when you go through something like in your particular case where you went through a long period of time, and here's the thing, I will tell you, I've been working with dysfunctional, I say that this is ongoing for me because I'm dealing with these chronic conditions. But I started working with this functional nurse practitioner in February. And I will tell you, at the time that I went to see her, because this condition that I had flared up at its worst, I was sick, I was nauseated. My anxiety was through the freaking roof because I could not get better. I could not sleep. I would go to lie down and I would be riddled with anxiety. I'd fall asleep. 2 hours later, I'd wake up again. Then I started developing anxiety because I couldn't go back to sleep. I started getting stressed out because I couldn't go back. And, I've often said this, when your body is, for me personally, and I'm sure many people are like this, it's a vicious cycle because when you're in a state of chaos, whatever that chaos looks like to you, for me, it was that I wasn't well and I was having anxiety because I wasn't getting better. It was like this vicious cycle, anxiety, no sleep causing it. Anxiety, this cycle. I finally had to start taking my watch off at night because this was stressing me out. I'd get up in the morning and I'd look at my heart rate variability and my heart rate, and it would be all over the place. I finally started taking the watch off. I put it down, got right, started working on my nutrition again, which I wasn't a bad eater, but I had things that were off. I had low iron that I had to deal with. My thyroid was having issues. I started addressing all of these things that we were finding, got the nutrition. I started noticing that things started kind of calming down, started implementing some of the nervous system regulation and things started settling. But when you go through something like that, I think that, you, in your case, and probably like mine with what I do, you realize the impact of when you figure this out, or at least get some kind of idea of what you need to do, and then you can share it with somebody else. You realize there are a lot of people that struggle with this and they really just don't know what to do.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you.
This is my time.
Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
I never settled on play, putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line. 8, 7,
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/JenniferLoading. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a really good point about looking at your tracker and getting even more anxious about your sleep.
Don't look at it.
Yeah. I mean, it can, like people, I mean, on every podcast interview, the question comes up about sleep trackers. Do I recommend them? And it's not a yes or no situation. It really depends on your own personal situation. Like I'm wearing an Oura ring, which, if you're watching this, you can see, I've been wearing it for over 4 years. I don't have insomnia. I'm a sleep optimizer. I like to look at my data and I like to make changes based on the data that I see. So there's a very good use case for me, for somebody, in my situation. But where it can get really sticky is when someone like you who wasn't sleeping well, who you were having some challenges, seeing that data kind of tank and not be steady just amped up your anxiety too much. So in cases like that, I would say for people listening, you can put your device away. You can, I sometimes recommend a compromise approach, and that looks like this. It looks like instead of checking your score every morning when you wake up, is wearing your device, and then maybe Saturday or Sunday, check it every week to look for trends, because I think we get super reactive when we see the data in real time. Right. And quite often, and they've even done studies backing this up, is you can see maybe a bad sleep score, and maybe the sleep score isn't really indicative of how you slept. Right. And what they show is that if you see a score that's not good, you can actually have sort of a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy situation happening, whereas your behaviors are sort of indicative of not having good sleep, when in actuality you did have good sleep. Right. So it's just really it's not a yes or no answer to the sleep tracker. It's really, you kind of have to know yourself. And really kind of understand, are you going to get more anxious about this? If so, take a pause or don't get one. And if you're an optimizer and you don't get emotional about the data, then go for it.
Yeah. And I agree. And thank you for saying that. I agree with you on that 100%. I think that, like overall, I use it kind of like you do as an optimizer. I don't look at every digit typically. It's to get kind of a baseline to look and say, what's happening overall? Am I seeing my heart rate doing a lot of this while I'm sleeping? Am I getting a lot of ups and downs? I look at it sort of like that. But I think at that time I was not well. And so it was not a good idea. And like you said, if it's not, you probably need to take it off and put it down for a while, because it's like this conversation. I'm watching this video the other day, and to your point on this, how our brain works, we were talking about specifically LDL cholesterol with keto. So hyper responders, people that tend to have elevated LDL, but all their other markers will be perfect. And whether or not this is a bad thing or not. Now, typically, if you were to walk into your doctor's office, they're going to look at that LDL, and guess what they're going to want to do? Statin. Or they're going to tell you to get off keto. Despite your AC1 being good, your triglycerides being good, your HDL, they're going to get hung up on that number. The guy was saying in this video that, we have to think about that, because like for me, that's not a big deal. If I walk in and my LDL, I went and got my blood work done recently. My LDL was a little bit elevated, but I'm also working with an FMP who is not worried about that. So for me, I don't care. My AC1's good. Everything else looks great. I'm not worrying about that LDL. I'm sorry. But we have been told for so long by doctors that this is a bad number. So psychologically, it's like you're talking about that score. We look at that and we may not be acting bad, but in our brain, we think LDL is bad. Oh my gosh, it doesn't matter that everything else is good. That's bad. Heart disease, heart attack. You see what I'm saying? Yes. And so I think sometimes we have to back up, and have some perspective on this, and like you said, know yourself and look at the kind of the big scope. Maybe try to be the optimizer, look at the big scope of everything so you can improve, but not get hung up on the one metric or the one number that's going to get you. Yes. We're not doctors here, so we're not prescribing anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
In big picture here.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the cherry on top of this conversation is really to pay more attention to how you feel about your sleep in the morning and throughout the day than what a number tells you.
It's good.
Go by your own body cues, go by how you feel like you're functioning versus what the number says.
What that score says,
Yeah.
right? That's good. No, that's good, Morgan. I agree with you on it. Thank you for sharing that too. I didn't even think to ask you that. We never know where these episodes are going to go, right? Like I love it, but that's an important point because there's somebody else out there. We all have these things, and people and some of us look at them more than others. I've learned that if I'm starting to get stressed out about it, I just take it off for a day, let it rest, just let it go down for a day. I wear it when I work out, wear it pretty much every day, but sometimes we just let it go.
Yeah, you can, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to wear it all the time. Like you have control over when you're going to use it. That's the beauty of it. It's up to you.
I agree. So I'd love to know, Morgan, some like wellness things that you do for yourself, because somebody listening to this is going, okay, she's a sleep coach. And, and one of the big things that we talk about here is really this whole taking care of ourselves, wellness. So maybe, some wellness practices that you implement into your own day that maybe somebody else could be like, hey, this is a good idea that I should look into this.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by sharing some of the circadian optimization practices that I've been doing. And I got really into this early in the spring of this year. And I found this app that I'll tell you about called Circadian Life. If you go to your apps and you just type in Circadian, you might get a couple things, but you're getting the right one if you see this sort of like black background with these sort of like little C's and like orange and red and yellow, kind of like in a little stack.
Okay.
That's the correct one.
Okay.
And what I love about this app is that it really helps us understand the optimal times for us to be outside for optimal light exposure. And so really to kind of summarize what that is, it's getting outside around sunrise. You're getting really, really key light exposure when you're out there for about 10 minutes. You don't want to have your sunglasses on or any kind of things covering your eyes. What's going to happen when you get out in the sunrise is you're going to have the ability to get your cortisol boosted, any residual melatonin gets shut down. It's orienting your body to the time, to your actual location. And our bodies need to know where they are in order for that circadian rhythm to be optimized. So get outside. And then when you look at the app, you'll also have the ability to see when something called UVA rise is happening. And that is basically when the sun is at between a 10 and a 30 degree angle above the horizon. And when you have the UVA light exposure, talk about hormone balancing, thyroid balancing. You're getting a lot of neurotransmitter and thyroid benefits because these aromatic amino acids convert into neurotransmitters and hormones when you see this UVA light. It's pretty magical. So you're going to find that your focus and your mood is able to get boosted by this light. And it's usually about an hour and a half. It depends on where you are. So this app is sort of like geographically triggered. So you enter your location and then it'll just spit back all the numbers. So it's like all prepared for you. And then after the UVA light, you have the opportunity to get the UVB light. And that's for a good chunk of the day. And that's when your body is able to make vitamin D. And we all know how important that is for our immune function. And then you can see when sunset is. And that's when you can see the more yellow, orange, red hues, which are signaling your body that it's time to prepare for night. So I have been really leaning into that a lot with my own personal practices. And scheduling my walks and my times outside according to those specific tips that the app gives. And I have found that I have felt a lot better. My mood has been a lot better. I've had some gut health issues that have resolved themselves without other intervention. So I would say if you're somebody who would like to improve your health and your sleep overall, the cheapest, most accessible way is to lean into light and dark. And then just to touch on briefly, at night, you want to make sure that, I'll back up and say you want your days to be very bright, like we just went over, lots of bright light during the day. And then conversely, at night, you want to make sure that you have plenty of darkness. So you want a stark contrast in light between day and night. When you have a lot of darkness at night, you're just really encouraging that melatonin release. And a lot of us in this modern day we are really impacting our melatonin production negatively because we have LED lights in our homes above us that are blasting, have, TVs and computers and all these devices that are tricking our brains into thinking it's daytime. So no wonder at 10 p.m. you can't feel sleepy because look at your surroundings, look what you're looking at. So I think that when you're really on a journey to fix your sleep, that is often really the starting point from my perspective, as well as picking a very consistent wake time every morning. So those are to me, the two most powerful things literally to start with is sunlight in the morning, plenty of it, and then the fixed wake time every morning, because that fixed wake time is actually an incredible circadian indicator of like, it's daytime. It's time to start your day. And then when you have that consistent wake time, what happens by default is you become sleepy around the same time each night. So not only is your wake time consistent, but your bedtime, the time that you get sleepy, tends to fall in line. So you have a really, really consistent sleep-wake cycle, which is proving to be more important than we even realized. They did a study just in January, thousands and thousands of people, showing that consistency with our sleep is often an indicator of low mortality. So they found that 6 hours of really consistent, regular sleep, people had lower mortality rates than they did if they slept 8 hours on an inconsistent basis. So I think, we often hear this, 8 hours of sleep, which is kind of a myth. We're really looking at 7 to 9, but we've been so focused in our society on the amount of hours of sleep that I think we're forgetting about the other sleep health metrics, which includes that consistency, which I just spoke of. And so I think that our public health messaging with sleep is going to start changing a little bit to include more of that consistency piece because it's been left out.
That's good. I think I actually read that article too. I think I brought it to my husband because he always tells me, he's like, you need 8 hours of sleep. And I'm like, every time I sleep 8 hours, it's too much. I feel like I have sleep inertia the next day. But here's the thing. I am very consistent about my wake up. I get up at the same time pretty much every day. It's funny now because on the weekends, I get up at 5 every day, 5 a.m. On the weekends, I set my alarm. This is stupid. I set my alarm till 6 because I'm thinking that I'm going to allow myself to sleep in. I never make it till 6. I never make it because I wake up on my own at the same time pretty much every morning. So somewhere within, maybe 10 minutes before 5 to 5:20, somewhere around there, I'm going to be awake and ready to go. Even if I go to bed, it doesn't matter what time I go to bed. I'm still probably going to be up unless I were to lie down at 3 in the morning. That might be a different story, but typically I'm going to be up. So I'm pretty consistent about that. And I do like that you said to get outside because I do agree with that too, that getting that vitamin D. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D and they don't even know it, and even talking about that, like doctors will tell you a number, but really to thrive, we need more vitamin D. And we're so afraid of it all the time because we're putting sunscreen on and we're not outside enough. And so I love that your whole thing is get outside and get some of that fresh, morning sun. It's important.
Yeah. And it's free.
Yeah. And it's free. And I think too about what are these like blue glasses or whatever? The glasses you can
blue
wear.
Light blocking glasses. Those are really important. I have been recommending those for a lot of people. I wear them every night myself. Because they have actually done studies showing that with consistent use, people do get better sleep, using them. And you need to be really careful though, because there are a lot on the market that are marketed as blue blockers, but they're not. So like if they are, clear, they're not blue blockers. They need to be orange or amber. And there's only like a few brands that I trust in this space who've done the testing.
Yeah.
I had a client recently who I recommended blue blockers. He goes, I've already got some. And later on, I said, show me the blue blockers you have. Right. He holds them up and I'm like, where'd you get those? He goes, Amazon. And I said, okay, I need to give you some real blue blockers. And once he got the real ones, he's like, yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
He was claiming that he got sleepy earlier. And I have noticed that myself too. So you may laugh. A lot of people laugh at this. It's fine. But, I actually have TV watching as my wind down routine at night.
I'm not laughing because I'm kind of that way too.
Okay. Because some people are like, wait, you're a sleep coach and you watch TV before bed. Like, isn't that bad sleep hygiene?
Yeah, it's just trash stuff.
It's like I have to give context. So I'm wearing the blue blockers. So I'm not getting that blue light blasted from my TV. I'm watching an actual TV. I'm not on a laptop. The TV is far away from me. And here's the kicker. It's the content that matters. Like you mentioned trashy stuff or whatever. You don't want to watch mainstream news. You don't want to watch horror movies, crime dramas. There's certain things that are going to kind of be too cognitively stimulating for you. And that's what can keep you up at night. That's what can trigger bad dreams and make your sleep restless. So it's really about the content that we want to focus on. So that is how you can get good sleep while you watch, before bed when watching TV.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was not laughing at you for that because I'm the same way. I say it's like detox. There's no brain stimulation to it. Yeah. It's almost, for me, it's white noise sometimes because I'm not really always even paying attention,
Right.
But it's just, I have to have a little bit of time before I go to bed to just sit down and unwind. I can't just be bouncing around and then go straight from there into the bed. I really need, and sometimes I don't even need the TV on. I just want to sit on the couch. I just want to sit there for a few minutes and just unwind.
Yeah.
Before I make that move in there.
That's a really important practice that I think a lot of people are missing in their evening is we need at least a half an hour to kind of really not do much and not have any cognitive stimulation and just kind of have that downtime to kind of let our brain and body prepare for sleep. There are too many people out there who are like literally working on their computer till 10, 11 at night. They shut down their computer and they try to go to bed. I'm like,
I can't.
Well, of course you're not going to be able to sleep.
Yeah,
you literally had no buffer between doing spreadsheets and sleeping.
My brain will still be going. It'll still be, I can't, because I'll be thinking, oh my God, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. But I can't. No, it's not happening. I could have maybe used to try to figure that out because I was so exhausted from going. But now I'm so particular about all the things I do. I have to watch my stress. I just don't feel well if I get too crazy. And so I'm very, I don't know. Maybe it's just getting old stuff, Morgan. I don't know. I'm starting to think there's some truth to all this stuff. The older we get, we're rigid. It's like, don't mess with the mornings. Don't mess with the nights, right? Leave them alone. I'm
right there with you. Do not mess with my evening routine or you might get in trouble.
I love it. Well, last question I want to ask you, Morgan, before we wrap this up, because I could tell in listening to you, you're passionate about what you're doing. And I love that. I think that's, in order for us to be able to help people, we've got to love what we do. We got to come from a different place. It can't be about this, how many, dollars am I selling and how much am I scoring in the bank, the bank account. I would love to know from you, what do you love about the work? What is it that you love about this work that you're getting to do?
I'd really love to see the transformation, not only with people's sleep, but the after effects, the trickle down effects. And they can be anywhere from I had a client the other day tell me, he made it sound so nonchalant, but I'm like, okay, do you realize what you just said? I think we've been working together for 5 weeks. His blood pressure has dropped 20 points since we started working together. And that's what I call an unintended consequence of the sleep coaching. So his sleep is better, but his health parameters are better. And then other clients are reporting having better relationships, not being as reactive. So it's really seeing not just the sleep transformation, but the whole person transform as a byproduct of getting the better sleep. It's really fun to watch.
It's awesome. No, and it is good. It's funny. I went in to get blood work done the other day, and none of us are ever excited about going to the doctor, right, to get blood work. I was actually excited. I have never in my 50-something years have gone to get lab reports. And I was actually excited because I went back in after, I'm having my blood work checked every 3 months. And I had been doing low carb for years, but I had kind of gotten lazy with the keto. And then I went back full on keto in April. So I had blood work done in May. Everything went crazy. My thyroid plummeted, my cholesterol, this stuff wasn't like this before. And so I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, I know keto can do this when you're making transition, but it just freaked me out because I had been sick for so long and that now I had another problem. That's what I felt. So when I went back, I guess I went back the week before last week. I went in there and she came in and she was like, well, Jennifer, I don't really have anything that's bad here. Everything looks good. And I was so excited.
Oh my God, I bet that was a relief.
Yes, the parameters, all the markers are back, are going in the right direction, But I was telling my husband, I said, the first time I ever went in, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to get my blood report because I'm excited to see what improvements we've made,
Yeah.
So
good for you.
I think it's fun when you're on the other end and you get to see those transformations for your clients and, and see that not here was the intended, we were working on the sleep, but then you had all these other things that came out of that as a result.
Yeah.
Score. It's awesome. Love it. Okay, so a couple fun questions I want to ask you. I just want to ask you this because you're in the wellness space, but I'd love to know like a guilty pleasure food, like something that is like I don't know, it's the food. Whatever it is.
Well, I will tell you, I have a pizza fetish.
Mm.
And not just, and there's a specific pizza in a local place that I get that it's gluten-free crust. It's got all the veggies. Like it's got artichokes, which is good for prebiotic fiber, loaded in veggies, not too much cheese. And it's got like the sweet spotted cheese, right? I add shrimp to it for protein, and it is like the chef's kiss. I eat the whole thing with no guilt. And it's not every day, obviously, but it's like, I love pizza and this is what I'm going to get. And I have no guilt or anything about it. And it satisfies me. So yes, pizza is definitely one of those guilty pleasure foods that it's a planned one though.
Yeah, no, I like that you said you don't feel guilty and you shouldn't. I mean, that's kind of the way I approach, food. It's like with people when I'm talking, I think it's that way with everything we do. You shouldn't, if you do something that's not in your norm, you shouldn't feel guilty about it. If you made a choice to do that, you shouldn't feel guilty about it. And even if you did mess up, so what? Get back on the track. Get back.
Exactly.
If you have these habits in place that you're doing daily, this isn't going to derail you in the long run. So I love it.
So true.
All right. Any like book or mentor that you feel like is inspired? I'm sure there's been several. I shouldn't even say any. I'd say which one, probably the most, but a book or mentor that you feel like has inspired your journey.
Well, no one's going to be shocked by this answer, but Dr. Matthew Walker is a real inspiration to me. He wrote the book, Why We Sleep. And I think it is just a pivotal book on sleep health. There have been people in the sleep field who've given it a lot of pushback. And all I'll say is, I'll say this. If you want to optimize your sleep and you're just kind of curious about sleep, curious about health, and understanding the power of sleep in your overall health journey, it's a great book. Read it. If you have insomnia, and that is like most of my clientele, people who have insomnia, who have a lot of anxiety about their sleep, you don't want to read this book. Wait till you are recovered from insomnia before you read it, because this book has a tendency to make people who are anxious about their sleep even more so. So just kind of, but I think he is the kind of scientist who I've observed over the years, and he has been able to deliver this information. And he's also been able to modify his stance on some things as he's learned more information and has assimilated the information, which I appreciate, because I think it's really great when people of that stature can have the humility to say, look, I have better information now and I want to change my stance on it. So I really admire that quality in him as a person.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That to me, it's huge when we can adjust, pivot, and change our views on something. It's they talk about this is it the five, not five, it's the four, I'm drawing a blank, but it's the developmental. No, it's about the developmental stages of adults. And they talk about these different levels. And at the pivotal top is when a leader has the ability to, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I talk about it in my program and my brain is fried right now. And I can't think of what I'm trying to tell you. I know the premises here. But they basically say that as this leader, you get to a place where you can live in a paradox, where you can actually change your views when given new information.
Yes.
And this is why politicians are never allowed to live like this, because once they say something, they're stuck with it forever, right? They're not allowed to change their views. People don't want to change.
That's right.
This is good. One last question I want to ask you. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to find out a little bit more about your work. Maybe they want to reach out to you. I don't know. We've got some people on here that are saying, I need help with sleep.
Yeah.
Where do you want us to send them?
Sure. You can go to my website. It's probably the easiest place, morganadamswellness.com. I offer a free mini course there. I offer also the opportunity for somebody to have what I call a sleep clarity call. That's a 20-minute free consultation where we can chat about your sleep challenge and talk about if sleep coaching is an option for you. And also I'm very active on Instagram. morganadams.wellness is my handle. Shoot me a DM, say hi, ask a question about sleep. Obviously, I love talking about the topic, so all are welcome to say hi and chat with me about sleep.
All right, Morgan. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for your knowledge and for the conversation. I enjoyed chatting back and forth with you on this. I feel like we've got some parallels. We're doing different things, but kind of our methodologies, I think, and our ideas about how we address, health and the wellness of people are very similar. And I love that. And I've always said that, the people that come on here, we're talking stories and about what you guys are doing, but they're really just lending another voice to the things that I'm putting out there and the work that I'm doing. So I appreciate you taking the time to share your journey and all the good stuff that you're doing out there.
Well, thank you for inviting me on.
Absolutely. And of course, to our listeners, we appreciate you. If you found this episode, I can't talk today for whatever reason. If you found this episode inspiring and informative, please head on over to all the platforms. You can give us a like, a review, share, subscribe, all the things. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.